Good evening, guys. My name is Shay. Welcome to the Shay Show. Today we get to speak with Deidra Riggs. She's another amazing human being that I've met here on the gram. I was taken with Deidra's ability to really dive into the intersectionality of both race and faith. I'm someone who comes from a history of Christian experience. And I was really like, man, anytime I see a voice that is espousing racial justice and really nailing the coffin on white supremacy in the face of Western white American Christianity, I really want to talk to them. So Deidra she's this, y'all. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's someone who boldly goes into areas of conversation that honestly, many of us are afraid to, or certainly don't know how to dive into it. So she's going to be here shortly. Oh, I just realized, y'all, the back of hello, Deidra, here I come. Oh my God, you guys, I'm kind of fangirling really big here. Oh my goodness. Deidra!
Hi!
Oh my word. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here.
I'm excited.
Oh my God. Can you hear me clearly, Deidra? I want to make sure.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah,
okay,
I can hear you. I can hear you well.
Yay!
Oh my
Hi,
word.
it's good to talk to you for real.
It is good to speak with you too. I mean, honestly, I was just telling everybody, I truly am fangirling here. Like, someone in my circle sent me information about you, and I was like, how have I never heard of this lady? B, how do I get to be her friend?
Here we are. Ta-da!
Ta-da! Like thank you. What I was saying about you, I've dug into your website. I haven't had the pleasure of reading your book, but it's on my list. Not it's gonna be on my list. It's on my list. It's going to happen in 2021.
Okay, but just wait. I just have to say, you're so beautiful.
What?
I can't, I'm just like staring. How is she so beautiful? We'll talk later. What are your secrets?
Girl, okay. Water
yes.
and cocoa butter. No, I'm joking.
Yes.
That is very kind of you. So I was just saying how truly, Deidra, I hope I don't get overly emotional tonight, just because when I dove into your words and the things that you question and the things that you speak to, it touches me consistently so deeply because I'm someone from a Christian background. I was raised in a Christian household, and many of the things you touch on, I have felt and I have questioned my entire Christian life. And I know now as a grown woman, the boldness and the bravery it takes to attack these internal questions in a very public forum and in a very public way. And I know what it does in terms of putting you in harm's way and putting you in the line of the arrows of so many, because your voice is certainly a voice that the powers of white supremacy do not want. They do not want to speak. So I want to tell you how grateful I am that you will dive into this space with me, knowing that I am a novice, but a very extremely curious human being who wants to hold space with you. So one of the things that I saw was, man, you were tackling white supremacy as white supremacy persists and exists in the American Christian space. I want to know a little bit more, Deidra, about why you started speaking against that and what were the experiences that made you felt that you needed to speak against it.
Well, and this is a story I tell a lot. So for people who have listened before, when I was 2 years old, my family moved to a new town, and my parents, I was the oldest, so at that time the only child, And my parents, it was very important for them. Also, I was raised in a Christian home, very important for them to find a church. They're traditionally Baptist, and so they looked in the historical document called the Yellow Pages back in the day in the phone book.
Those yellow pages.
Right? And they found a Baptist church, and we went to that church one Sunday morning, and we were late. And it was a church where you walk in the back, and then you open the doors to the sanctuary, and you're at the back of the sanctuary. And so we walked into the back of the sanctuary, and this is, of course, them having told me this story over the years. I don't remember it.
Right, you're two.
Right. And they saw that it was a white congregation, and they were both like, ooh, no, this is not what we want to do.
Yeah.
Because it was the 60s, it was just, my dad was like, this is not how I want to spend my Sundays. I spend my Monday through Friday here. I don't want to spend my Sunday here.
Which pause real quick, which should show us the fundamental ill of the way the faith has been espoused and rejuvenated or juvenated in the first place, because the fact that your father instinctively knew this is not where we're supposed to be.
Right.
And the truth is, if we who believe the gospel, it should have felt like any old place for him. It should have felt like a place of welcoming. It should have felt like a harbinger of goodness and love, shouldn't it have?
Yeah, definitely. I'll say more about that. But so at that moment, they decided they were going to leave the church. That, we'll find a different place to worship. But I was 2, and I had walked halfway down the aisle, and so someone had to get me. So they went in to get me and sat, because you can't just like walk in and they'd be like, did you see black people? I think I just saw black people. And, so we stayed.
What was that? Well, did you see that?
Right. They just came in and left. So we stayed, and then we ended up staying there. My parents had an experience. The pastor came to our home that day, and which was like, what? A white man came to my house and sat in our chairs and ate our food. And, my parents he was a very pastoral man. So we ended up staying at that church, and we were one brown family in a white church. And so that's how I grew up. So I started noticing that the church, there were white people. I wouldn't have said it like this back then. As I was growing up, there were white people at church, but at my school, there were black people. And do black people go to church? How come black people can't go to church? Why is this church all white people? And then I would go to visit my grandparents in the summer, and their church was black. And I would say,
where did your grandparents live?
In Virginia. So I was in New Jersey when this was happening. But it just started to be, I believe when I went into that church at 2 years old, I think that's where a seed was planted in me. That for my life, I've just always wondered if the church is about God and love and humanity and lifting, giving value to humanity, no matter who that is. Why can't we figure out how to worship together across racial lines? So that's just always been my question. And over the years, and I haven't arrived. I still have many, many questions, but I've learned a lot over the years of interrogating that. And I believe there's a little C church and a big C church. And the little C church is the institution that we value here in America as a capitalistic society. And that little C church functions on power and money, just like the rest of our...
Just like anything else. Just
exactly.
like AT&T, just like Google.
Right. And so we try to make what we call our faith experience and our relationship with God, we've put that into this box of capitalism and power and money.
Yeah.
And there's the capital C church, which is the body of Christ, right? And that's a whole different experience. Ooh, and I think that's why so many people feel this tension in the four walls of,
yes,
in there, there's so much tension in there because of what we bring, our baggage that we bring to, and our history that we've refused to
Acknowledge.
face up to and
Yeah.
acknowledge and repent of, and that much of what has been harmful and oppressive and repressive in our country was birthed in the church and
Mm.
continues to be perpetuated in the little c church, not in the capital C church, which is the body of Christ. I believe there are members of the capital C church in the little c church.
Right.
Um,
Girl,
you know,
you are breaking it. Go on.
so, and that's why so many people, that's why there is so much tension. But there should not be, James Baldwin said, there should not be a black church and a white church in America. Dr. King back in the 60s said 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is the most segregated hour. And that remains to be, it's still
True
true.
to this
It's
day.
still true, right. And because of separation of church and state in our country, the state is never going to tell the church you need to integrate. And so I
Right.
believe that what we see in church on Sunday morning is the truest representation about what we believe about race in this country.
Listen, dude, where's my hanky? Where's my hanky?
So, yeah. And I don't say that as I think I am not trying to pass judgment as much as I am trying to bring awareness that we need to know where we are and what we have done in order to be better than who we are right now. And also, because the Word of God says that the world will know that Jesus was sent by God because of our
Why?
love for one another.
Ugh.
Not
Why
because
you
of
got to go
how
there?
much, right? Not because of how much money we bring in or how many people we have or
How many souls we've won for Christ?
right, and how many
Mm-hmm.
books we've published or albums
Mm-hmm.
we've released,
Mm-hmm.
but because of our love for one another and our failure to figure out how to worship. What is it that holds us back from worshiping across racial lines? We don't deal with that. And we also have never dealt with our role as the little C church, people of the big C church in the little C church being complicit in and perpetuating racism and white supremacy.
So I want to ask you that question. What do you think holds us back from
Mm-hmm.
having that very, not only um, vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
but necessary dialogue
Yeah.
of what keeps us from wanting to have a fully wholly integrated space and to actually hold space and conversations with our brothers and sisters of different races. Specifically, we're talking about America,
Right.
specifically black and white people and our
Mm-hmm.
experiences therein. What do you think is the reason that we don't?
Yeah, I think everything that in America that is an issue goes, the root of it is money and power. Um, and slavery was started because of money and
Right.
power. And our churches, we don't want to admit it, but we are very addicted to money and power. And because we're in a capitalist society, I mean, you have to have money to do business in America.
Correct.
So
We know
there
that.
is a need. I mean, if you want to have a church building, I don't know that that's necessary, but if you've decided that that's how you want to worship in a church building, then you need money to maintain that facility and um, keep your programs going, pay your salary. And I say this as the wife of a pastor. So,
Oh,
that there's that whole thing as well. But I think that you cannot serve people and money. You have to choose one. You can't do both.
you can't.
Um, no, you
Mm.
can't do both. And I think if we are serving and loving people, we can't do that if our eye is always on the dollar. I think we have to trust that our love, we have to reframe how we do ministry. Do we need these big church buildings? I'm just asking. I don't have an answer. I'm just thinking these are questions we can ask. But when we tie our ministry to buildings and tithes and offerings, not saying these are wrong, but then we're paying a salary to a pastor. We're paying benefits to a pastor because this is the context that our churches function in this capitalistic
So
society.
I just want to pause real quick to make sure I'm understanding. So my question to you was, why do you think we are not having these very vulnerable, necessary, and real conversations about race, and also our history and why we don't want to be together on a Sunday morning, which really shows why we don't want to be together in a larger context, right? Micro, macro. What you're saying is that very segregated morning should really represent the deep and most pure need and desire of the white American experience. That's what we want it to look like, or the white American Christian experience. That's what we want it to look like.
For them? For white people? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, for white people. Are you saying that the reason why, if this is what I'm hearing, Shay, that hour or two, depending on what church you go to, or three,
or
five, where your blood sugar goes low.
Yes.
That hour on a Sunday morning is probably the most demonstrative.
Yes.
Of what truly is kind of like the heartbeat and the rhythm of where we want to be, because there's no government entity that's speaking to it. There's no government entity that's requiring it. There's no larger entity that's looking over that and saying, this is what we need it to be. It just is what we, the participants, want it to be.
Yep.
So that's what I'm hearing. Am I hearing correctly? So then, when I'm asking you, well, why do you think that's what we want to be? And why we don't want to have those conversations? What I'm hearing is, well, we don't want to have those conversations because it's going to disrupt us financially. And what we're more concerned with is the financial fluency and productivity of a space, the building, and all of the accoutrements that are necessary to keep it going. And if having that discussion or having that real heart-to-heart transformative space holding is going to challenge that, we cannot have that. We cannot.
Exactly. Have that. Yeah, because people in churches vote with their money.
Right.
And so if you're having a conversation that I do not want to have in my church, I'm going to leave your church and go somewhere else and take my money with me. Ooh. And then that impacts, at any time, I shouldn't say any time, many times when talking with church leaders about having this conversation, that is the hesitancy. I don't want to I don't want to make the members upset. I don't want people to leave. I don't want the board to get upset. It's an upsetting conversation. And
it's upsetting, if I might be so bold, it's an upsetting reality that we consistently create.
Yeah, right.
But what upset are we more comfortable with having? Yeah, it seems like we're more comfortable with having the upset reality of it, than the actual discussion that might take away from our money.
Yeah, see, you don't need me. You got this.
No, I'm learning from you. I truly am learning from you. I'm like, damn, that, to be honest, that's like hitting me hard. I'm like, I just think about how when you historically look at like the civil rights movement of the 60s, the standard and typical white American Christian space was kind of like, well, these Negroes kind of they have to disrupt everything. Why they got to sit at the Woolworth counters and just take their brown butts and just be fine with the back of the bus? And why y'all got, what's wrong with eating from the back of the kitchen? Like, why are you guys disruptive? So for me, I'm hearing what you're saying because I'm like, that's why they were mad at their Black brethren who wanted freedom and equity and equality, because it disrupted their space, and they were more comfortable with the horrible reality of segregation and white supremacy than actually not getting the money when they needed it.
Yeah. And I said there were two things I said. There's money and power.
Power.
So if when the tables turn, when power is distributed equally, that's a threat to people who have used their power to oppress.
Right.
Whether consciously or subconsciously, whether aware of it or I just was fed this doctrine of white supremacy and I never have thought about it. I've just lived it. But the closer I get to a world that is more equal, I begin to see that my way of living has been oppressive to others. And those others might be angry and want to and I've been talking about retributive justice versus restorative justice.
I need you to talk about that because I've been reading I want you to touch on that, please.
Well, there's a little, we don't know what, if I'm white and I've lived out this life of white supremacy, whether I've chosen it or it's been given to me and I've been unaware of it, I begin to realize that, well, these people that I've oppressed may now want justice, but what does that justice look like? And if I'm a person who has oppressed people all my life, I probably am more interested in retributive justice. I'm probably more familiar with retributive justice, which is all about retribution, vengeance, more than I am more than I'm interested in restorative justice, which is about restoring humanity.
Probably because the restorative justice is a little foreign when you don't know what restoration looks like.
Exactly. Yeah. And all of us, I think, when we think about justice, we think about what it gets me.
That's
the
right.
One that has been offended.
That's right.
But when we're talking about retributive justice and restorative justice, we're talking about what it gets the person who has offended us. Do I want them to receive retribution or do I want them to receive restoration? And there's a difference, right?
It sure is.
And that's a difference in the perspective of my own heart. Where am I, what am I trying to advance in our world? What am I trying to create in this world? What is my legacy that I want to leave in this world? I want to leave a legacy of love, which is a capital L love, which is not like weak and whiny and sweet. It's beautiful, but it's hard and it's strong, and it's transformative. And I'm not saying, I think there's a place for retributive justice and there's also a place for restorative justice. I am invested in restorative justice because I believe in the value of the humanity of every person. Sure. I don't think that people are naturally bad or evil. I think when God created humanity, he said this is good. It was when there was an encounter with evil, however we want to tell that story, whatever that looks like, that we were influenced to do evil. But I don't know that that's what we are in our hearts. I think that we are very easily influenced by evil, but I'm not convinced that we are evil in our hearts.
I agree.
And so I would love to see people restored to the humanity that God envisions for us. And that's the type of justice I think God seeks for us as well.
May I ask a question on what does retributive justice, give me an example of what you think retributive justice looks like versus restorative justice.
Yeah, I want to be very careful when I talk about this because while I have been harmed by people, I have not suffered the trauma that some people have. So I think there is a place for, I'm not saying one is wrong and the other is right. I think there is a place for retributive justice where that's an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth justice. You took my child, I want your life.
Take yours. That's right.
And so that to me is retributive justice. I believe in our country, we are financially invested in retributive justice. That's why we have the prison industrial complex. That's why we have the school to prison pipeline, because it benefits people financially to have retributive justice in place. Sure. Restorative justice is about, did you ask me this to compare the two, or did you just want me to talk about retributive?
I know. I wanted you to compare the two. I wanted to know what an example of retributive justice looks like and an example of restorative justice, because I want people to have something solid to to compare or to lay over it. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just a theory you're speaking of or words, but it's like, oh, when I'm
Right.
doing this, I'm
Mm-hmm.
promoting restorative justice, or when I'm doing this, I'm promoting retributive justice. I want them to
Right.
have solid things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do you think that helped give?
Girl,
Okay.
that I get retributive justice
Yeah,
now.
I think we're really familiar with retributive justice in
I
our
think you're
country.
right.
We're really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Restorative justice is what we have a hard time with, because it is that there's a lot of work to get there, and I'm not there with many of my relationships, but I want to be there. It is believing, hoping and believing the best of people, and working, is having love as your foundation. And because I don't believe that we are inherently bad or evil, and I think that's probably an important foundation when you're working toward restorative justice. I don't know. I could die and find out I was wrong. But
I always say that. I go,
right.
we're gonna die, we're gonna
Yep.
get to heaven, and
We'll find out.
99% of the stuff that we
Right.
held to be 100% accurate is gonna be wrong.
Gonna be
and
wrong.
Who's not gonna care is God.
Right. Exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
yeah, you've been wrong about that. Yeah.
Right. I find when I work toward retributive justice, that is all about me. And in the end, it doesn't necessarily make me feel better. It makes me feel like I expended energy towards something, but it doesn't necessarily make me feel better. When I work toward restorative justice, I'm more invested in the other person's humanity and restoration in their relationship with God and with others and with themselves. I find for many, all of us have a break in that, in our relationship with God, with others, and with ourselves. And I'm invested in, I believe that that can be restored in everyone.
Do you think that this is wrong to say? But it seems to me that Black Americans have, this might sound like I'm just saying this because I'm Black, but it seems to me, when I just examine the historical accuracy of who Black people are in the United States of America, how they got here, largely their experiences and their process to keep existing and be. It seems like Black Americans have a greater propensity to, in order to exist and to move ahead, it seems like they have to move from a place of restorative justice all the time.
Yeah.
But white America does not.
No.
Does that seem, am I being unfair when I say that? Because it seems like I have to, when you were talking about retributive justice and restorative justice, for some reason, the image of a series that my husband and I were really into like 2-3 years ago was called The Underground. John Legend was one of the producers on it. And I believe it was on Hulu or Netflix.
Okay.
And it was all following, it was the Harriet Tubman finally is introduced.
Oh, right. I remember that. I never saw it. Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant series. And I think there were only 2 series. Is that two seasons? 2 seasons. If I'm accurate, if I'm correct. And one of the shows, so there's a slave master who owns this beautiful plantation in Georgia. My husband's from Georgia, so we were really feeling a connection. And I can't remember right now, but I remember the name of his plantation is the name of a city in Georgia today. And we're like, look at that. Okay. Like, it, you know? And he is one of the house Negroes. She's light skinned. She's pretty. She actually, not trying to be funny, she visually reminds me a lot of you. She's the house Negro who kind of is the head maid inside the space, if you will. And she has 2 children. And as the series goes on, you realize that these 2 children are the children of Master.
Right.
And when you were talking about restorative justice and retributive justice, I don't know why, but this particular show, this
Mm.
particular, you know, show in the series stood out for me. So
Mm-hmm.
his son, there's a pastor that comes to the plantation. I guess maybe once or twice a year. And it's a big deal.
Okay.
It's a big deal when this big time pastor or preacher, I think this
Mm-hmm.
is what they call him, a preacher, is where he's coming to the plantation. And he is a very self-righteous white
Okay.
man.
Okay.
And the the son of the master tried to run away.
Okay.
As I probably, if I had the balls and I was
Right.
as brave as I hoped I would be, as I
Right.
could have.
Mm-hmm.
And the master allows him to be whipped, like whipped. But and if I'm not mistaken, allows his one of his feet to be chopped off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the preacher is there, and he's just like, he's emboldened with anger that
Mm-hmm.
that's all that he got.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be righteous. You need to be holy. You
Mm-hmm.
need to
Mm-hmm.
be you need to set precedent of what they can and cannot do.
Mm.
And he argues, the preacher argues for the hanging of the son,
Mm-hmm.
not just like in the bushes,
Mm.
but like in front. There's a big tree in front of the big manor.
Yeah.
And to be hung at a specific time so that the other slaves would
Yeah,
see
can
it.
see. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and he and the master, kind of doesn't want, I'm chomping his
Right.
foot off. And that's a whole nother discussion that he's even able to let
Right.
himself,
Right.
but the murdering, the hanging of his son is clearly a little problematic for him. He kind of doesn't want it to happen.
Right. Right.
But he doesn't not want it to happen strong enough.
Right.
Because in fact, the preacher espouses it so strongly that in order for the master to feel like he's right, he allows his own son to be hung right in the front of this beautiful white house with this upstairs balcony that looks over, and all of the slaves are there to see it. The reason why I'm bringing this story up, and maybe it being longer than necessary, is that for me, every Black person on that plantation, because although this is a fictional account of historical accuracies, this absolutely could and did happen.
Yes.
We know
Right.
this.
Right.
And so for me, every Black person on that plantation who went on to live, have children, raise children, and went on to try to live in this world and do good and do better, they had what was required of them was restorative justice. They had to, every action. When I went to the store to get the sugar, I had to believe in your inherent goodness and that you would see me. So it seems to me that Black Americans, through the pain of what we have come through the African diaspora, the Black Westerners, period, whether I'm from the Bahamas, whether you're from Jamaica, Bahamas, America.
Right.
It seems that we've been in a place of having to give white people restorative justice at every hand, at every turn.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let me make a clarification, because I don't think you can have justice without accountability.
Ooh.
So, because it's not justice then. Then it's just me submitting my will to yours and allowing you still to exert your position and power and authority, perceived position, power, and authority over me. It's justice when you have been held accountable For not you, but my
Yes,
oppressor has
one
been
has been
held
held accountable.
accountable for the injustice that I have perpetuated, right? That I am owning the injustice. If I as a person, I believe in the inherent goodness of people, but I don't just give that away for free. I believe it's in there, but I think you have to work for it. You have to believe that of yourself, and you have to
act accordingly.
And you have to believe it of me. You have to believe that I am inherently good and valuable. When we talk about, I think this is where we get a lot of pushback when we talk about justice and unity. Unity is a tough word for people because I think many people hear it and feel like, let's just get together. But there is no unity if there hasn't been accountability and if there hasn't been justice, because then unity is all about bringing together your whole self, your whole authentic self into a relationship with another person's whole authentic self. And if one of those parties or both of those parties have not accepted responsibility for their wrongdoing as a human, have not been held accountable for the injustices that we've perpetuated, that's not unity. That is one person exerting power over another person in the name of unity, but it's not unity. It's not unity until we are two whole people.
So what would you call it that Black people had to consistently do in order to live?
I think that we we have this intimate relationship with the understanding of restorative justice, but we have not experienced it. We have a hope for restorative justice. We believe that it's possible.
That's gonna make me cry.
Yeah, but we have not experienced it.
Because the accountability hasn't been held by the other party.
Right. Who very much believes in and has practiced retributive justice. That story you told about having the foot cut off and then the hanging, that's retributive justice. That is me exerting my power over you and calling it justice.
And by the way, if that's the only way you have ever understood justice, it almost makes you unable to believe there can be a different type of justice. I heard, I interviewed a lady several months ago, and she is a minister in the Anglican faith, in the Anglican church. And she said, you know, Donald Trump, for example, is a man who only has gotten everything that he has ever gotten through gifting and thievery and cheating and lying. So he truly is incapable of believing that anybody else can get to where they are without having executed or exercised the same type of evil, if you will.
Right.
So I think if what you're saying is that is retributive justice, and that's truly a justice that white America is very used to and very comfortable with, it would make them, I'm trying to be the devil's advocate here. It would kind of make them hard pressed to believe that there could be any other way to change behavior, right? Because the retribution is still, or the seeking for justice, whether it's retributive or restorative, it is that in the end we want a different result. We do want different behavior. And if you don't think that behavior can be any different other than retribution, why are you ever going to seek a different type of justice?
And if all you've ever done is mete out retributive justice, then that's what you expect in return.
That's my point. That's what, to her point about Donald Trump, she's like, so yeah, he thinks everybody cheated to get where they are because he knows what he did.
Of course. And so then we go, because then that is my need to invest in my power then, because I can't let you get power over me to exact retributive justice
Because that's
on
what
me.
you're going to do. Because I know what
Right.
I would do in the
Right.
same position.
Yes.
So
And
how do we get
so
beyond that? I'm asking and trying to learn, sister.
yeah, it's a lot of internal work. And I am not there, right?
I
I am
clearly am
learning
not
too.
by my questions.
Yeah, no, I am not. I'm sure you're probably further along than you think. I believe it's really important to understand where you're starting from,
Yeah.
right? And to identify, I think many people need to have a conversation about what they mean when they say racist. What does that mean to them?
Ooh, well, tell us. What does that mean?
I think everyone needs to figure that out for themselves.
Ooh.
Because if I say this is what a racist is, and then people say, well, I'm not that,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
So then you feel like you got off. Like,
right,
yeah, that's
because
what those
Deidra
racists
said
do.
that this
Yeah.
is a racist, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am not that. And
I'm not
so
killing black folks.
exactly,
I'm
yeah.
just not
And
hiring
so
them.
I think that's an individual, you have to come to individual understanding of what you mean when you say the word racist.
May I ask a very personal question?
Hmm.
What is your interpretation for you,
For me, of racist.
racism?
So because, well, okay, well, I see racist and racism as two different things.
Okay, talk to me, sister. One is a system and one is a person.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
believe that because I am a word person,
Me too.
um, a racist is a person who has ideologies that affirm the existence of races, which is really a construct. Races are a construct.
Hmm.
So a racist is someone who believes that race exists and that it that there is value attached to different races.
Girl, I love that. That is so
So
pure. That
yeah.
that race exists and that there's
Hmm.
value attached to the races that in fact exist
In my mind or
in
my
my process in
reality
my
or
place. Yeah.
hmm yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So there's that period. And
That's
then there's
racist.
racism,
Racism.
which is a system of or systems of thought,
Beliefs.
ideologies,
Mhm.
theologies, practices that um, take that assigned value to the races and mete out privilege or punishment based on
Mm.
what that privilege or that value is allegedly supposed to be.
Oh, okay. That's huge for me. Racism.
That's just me.
No,
That's
I'm,
how I deal with it.
by the way, that's very helpful for me. Yeah. And the very simple definition of racist is
Hmm.
belief and the allowance of preference or power of one over the other.
Yeah.
You know, like
Mhm.
I love that.
Assigning value.
Assigning value.
And it's a hierarchy. So it's,
Yep.
it's not like this, it's like this for the value.
The other day, God, you're like this well that I just want to keep bringing up.
I'm just I'm just old.
No, you're not. You're
I've
beautiful.
been talking
I
about it
love
for
your
a long
hair.
time. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. I was like,
Thanks.
ooh. The other day I was, gosh, I was just kind of writing about, oh, I just lost my train of
That's
thought
okay.
because I was talking about your hair.
Oh,
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
yeah. Was it race and racism?
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question of a scenario that I saw and I wanted to hear your thoughts, but I'll
Mm.
get back to it.
Okay.
I can't even remember it
Yeah.
right now.
Okay.
But when when I'm looking at your posts
Mm.
on Instagram, what
Mm-hmm.
is clear is that there's two things that's clear. One, you have no tolerance for white supremacy.
I do
None.
not. No.
None.
Mm-mm.
None.
No.
And two, there are people who really that really bothers them, that you have no tolerance for white supremacy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so I want to know, what is the argument? So what I do understand in the parameters of being a human and living our lives is that we all are kind of living our narrative and our story. And in our story, what we cannot be is the bad guy. Okay.
Right.
We have to be the good guy. Like, we're
Yeah.
not going to be the guy with the black hat over the
Right.
side who's like exacting punishment.
Right.
We have to be the good guy. And who
Mhm.
taught me that the most was the interview I saw with Denzel Washington.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was during the time when he was in the movie Training Day.
Oh,
And everybody, because this is how I was in the movie
yeah.
Training Day.
They're like, what?
I was like
Denzel is the
15
bad
minutes
guy?
in, and I was like, ooh, okay, so now he's about to show them, and then he's gonna be the good. And then I was like 20 minutes in, and then finally 30 minutes, I was like,
But this is
Denzel's
Denzel.
a bad guy. He's a
Right.
horrific, like, you know, unabashedly horrible human
Right.
being, seemingly with no moral compass. And
Right.
this was very hard for me to digest, as it clearly was for other people.
Many
so when he
people.
was on the circuit and you know, being interviewed, they were like, I loved hearing the interviewers say that. They're like, now Denzel,
Right.
why did you play the bad guy?
Right.
And,
Right.
and Denzel was like, I didn't play a bad guy. And I was a little bit like, yeah,
Yes, you did.
He was horrible. And then he had that second family and the baby and the little boy, and like, girl, and then you did that stuff to Ethan
Right.
Hawke's character, you know, like, I was livid. And he was like, the first thing you learn when you go to acting school and you get real training is that you have to understand the motivation of the character you're playing, what they want. And so you're not playing a bad guy. You're playing someone who wants these particular things, who believes these particular set of realities or facts. So if you're playing the bad guy, you'll play a one-dimensional character. If you're playing from the motivations of who this person is and what they want and what they hope, you will play the whole gamut of who that soul is. So the reason why I'm saying this is, I know that no one can be the bad guy in their story, no matter how debased they are. So tell me why you think those who seem to say they want honor, they want integrity, they want holiness, why do you think that they would have a problem with you not being for white supremacy?
So
You get
I
me?
think there's two categories of people in this conversation. There's the one, because I have conversations with people behind the scenes, of course, right?
Of course.
So there's what I post on Instagram and what's going on behind the scenes. So there's a group of people who want to denounce white supremacy in all its forms. In my opinion, they're overthinking it. They want to denounce it, but they feel like they don't live up to that. Like, they still make mistakes. They still have some blind spots. So they don't feel like they can come out and say, I denounce white supremacy. I was thinking about this morning in the shower. I should start talking about how we denounce white supremacy in all its forms, even when it shows up in ourselves.
Well,
yes. That's where people, they're like,
glory.
I can only denounce
it
if, yeah. I mean, they feel like they can only denounce it if they have overcome it.
If they have 100% absolved themselves from any interaction or espousing thereof. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And so I think they're overthinking, and they just need to go ahead and denounce it. And nobody's going to say, but the other day you were whatever, listening to, what was that? Lady Antebellum. Nobody's going to do that. No, well, maybe people will, but they can still denounce. And then there are just hardline people who think white supremacy is not a thing. It's from the past.
That's the thing about it. Those people get on my nerves. Can I just say that right now?
Yeah.
Can I say it gets on my nerves because I'm like, you're more attached to trying to prove that it's not a real thing than actually sitting with people in their pain and hearing them.
Yeah.
And giving a shit.
It's very true. I lived for a while in a really small town in a state in the South. I was going to say more, but I'm going to just say it like that.
Okay.
And
What if I was like,
it
she's
was
talking about
very,
me?
it was very clear who was for you and who was against you,
Hmm.
right? And I felt much safer there, that I knew who
Yes.
was not for me and who was for me.
I've heard a lot of Black Americans specifically say that.
Yeah.
I have a friend from the South. He's a Black
Mm-hmm.
American who rose to great ranks in New
Mm.
York City, specifically
Mm-hmm.
working at Goldman Sachs, making like
Yeah.
stupid money.
Right.
And he said, but you know what I did like about the South?
You knew.
You knew. You didn't
Yeah.
have to walk around that question. You knew who thought you
You
were a
knew.
nigger and was not trying
Exactly.
to interact
They,
with you,
right.
who knew you were less
Mm-hmm.
than them, and then you
Mm-hmm.
knew the people who were fine with you. He's like,
Yeah.
but in New York, I always had the question.
You
There's
wonder.
always
Mm-hmm.
that question. If the cab went by a little too fast,
Was that because I
was
was
that
black?
because I was
I
black?
know. It's
Yeah,
so true.
yeah.
So while they are in denial, and so much of that is tied up in the fact that white supremacy is handed down from generation to generation. So if it exists, then that means that my mom, who I loved and raised me and took care of me and cooked my breakfast, lunch, and dinner, taught me something that is wrong and not true and oppressive. And her mother taught her, and and all these people, my legacy,
And I
all
love
these
them,
people,
and I
and I
cannot
love
be.
them.
Yep.
And
I
if
feel
I
like God showed me
say,
that about my husband's family.
yeah, well, and if I say this is true, then it's true about them, and
And
maybe
I
it's
can't
true
have
about
that
me,
be,
and I can't do that
because
because if
that
I'm
whole thing.
using the word denounce, I mean, I'm denouncing something that's in my family and people that I love.
Yeah.
So then,
And
mhm,
might I add on to that? And then if I say that, guess what they are in the larger narrative? The bad
that's
guy.
right. It's right. It
Yeah,
is. It's true, and we all are. We all have that in us,
we
right?
do.
We all have been the bad
And
guy to someone. Which is why I'm so invested in restoring people's humanity, right?
mhm.
Letting us be the humans that we were created to be, in all of that goodness and all of our flaws, so that we can have these conversations and not be so invested in something as unsteady and unstable and unsure as money and power, because
Ooh,
none
unsteady,
of that,
unsure.
yeah, it doesn't, that does not sustain. Love is what sustains.
Hmm.
And I mean the capital L love. I mean, God is love. We don't know what that means. We don't really understand that. God is love and love is God. So wherever love is, that's where God is. Wherever we are experiencing love, and that's what we need to get to. This attachment that we have to money and power in our culture is just a
Hmm.
distraction from what we were created to be and do, which is love. It's to be the manifestation of love
Love
in
is what
this world,
sustains.
and not little L love, but capital L love. And
What's little L love?
I think little L love is Valentine's Day, right? It's which is I'm not anti Valentine's Day, but
I
it's
understand, but I
you
love
know
that you said that. I see
yeah,
it.
and I
Yeah.
think it's sweet and it's cute and it's
I got some chocolates for you, girl.
exactly. But I'm gonna eat those chocolates and they'll be gone.
Right.
Capital L love is forever. It
It's
is,
forever.
and it's hard fought, and
Sustaining.
it's
It's
way more.
eternal.
It's eternal. It's
It's
way more than we
unconditional, as
give
my
it
husband
credit
said.
for.
Hmm.
Exactly, unconditional.
There's
Yes,
never anything that makes it wane. It
it
doesn't,
never goes away.
never
It
goes away.
never goes away. No matter what you do, it never goes away. Always for you, always with you, always believing in you. Um, and we don't have that when we are joined so tightly to power and money.
Yeah. You know, you said something that was so powerful to me when I said, well, why do you think that there are people who don't want to like come out and say white
Hmm.
supremacy is bad?
Hmm.
And I loved it that you said there's this group that kind of feels like if you're not doing all
Yeah. Hmm.
and there's any clink in your armor,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
can't do any of it.
Right.
And I love too that you really, we don't have to be perfect in our
Mm-mm.
execution of it
Mm-mm.
for it to be a high and lifted esteem
Exactly.
that we seek after, right?
Yeah.
I was just talking with a friend earlier today, years ago. I don't know if you remember that movie, Love and Basketball.
Yes.
Okay. So can we go there with each other for a moment?
Yes.
So Love and
Yes.
Basketball, I had just graduated from law school. I was
Oh no. What happened? Okay.
sorry about that. Someone's
There we
calling.
go. Okay. Yep.
I'm back. Somebody called and I just had
Got
to
you.
decline
Yeah.
it. So I was teaching. I was teaching at the boarding school that I first attended in the United States in Lake Placid, New York,
Uh-huh.
and that was the movie that every 7th, 8th grader wanted to
Yeah.
watch. And yeah, I know. And what I loved is that the majority of the students at this boarding school were white. And listen, there was no movie they loved more than Love and Basketball. And they were like, "Can we watch Love and Basketball?" I love
It was
that.
so good.
Yes.
I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Yes. But the line of Love and Basketball that reminds me of two things. It reminds me of the framers of the United States of America, and it reminds me of those people. I'll tell you why. And it reminds me of the people, the first group of people that you said have a reticence to speak against white supremacy because they kind of believe that because they don't execute it at a degree of 100% accuracy,
Right.
can they in fact speak against it?
Right.
And you remember how the father was just like, so like, you're going to be great. You're going to be honorable. You're going to have work ethic that's going to make everybody look lazy and stupid. That is going to be who you are. And he grows up under the hand of that. And he gets to college and he comes home one night and, you know, he's from a wealthy family. His father's been a professional basketball player. His mom lives in this great, big, beautiful home. And he comes home one night and his mom is sitting on the lounge chaise by the pool weeping with like a bottle of wine or something. And she is just through. Sister girl is not having it. And he comes in. He's like, "Mom, what's going on?" And she says, she has this envelope. And it's all these pictures. Your father's been cheating.
Right.
He's been doing it for years.
Right.
And it truly blows his mind. He's like, "What? My father who was like
the perfectionist."
Listen, he is the capital H in honorable. That's who my father is.
Right.
And after that, he leaves and he extracts himself from his father's life. He's like, "Mother effer, you ain't gonna even have any drop of me in your life." And so I can't remember how much time elapses, but a certain amount of time, which is significant, elapses. And the father begs, "Can we just meet at a bar near the college?" And they meet at the bar near the college. And the first question, and this is what reminds me of the framers and that first subset of people that you were talking about. He looks at the father and he says, you can see the shame on the father. He says, "Why couldn't you be the man that you wanted me to be?" And the father's answer is very loose and not strong, but essentially, he wanted to be it. He just couldn't.
Can't do it.
He couldn't do it. But it didn't mean that what he wanted for his son was a bad thing.
That's right.
Just because he couldn't live up to it. And so the framers of the Constitution of this nation that we hold dear, never once lived up to what they espoused and what they hoped.
That's true. Nope.
Never once.
Nope.
But it doesn't mean that what they hoped for was less than honorable.
Exactly.
What they wanted was less than glorious. You know?
I agree. Yep.
And so that's what I get from Love and Basketball. He wanted
I love that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wanted his son to be better than he knew how to be.
Yeah. Right.
So that's what it reminds me both of the framers and that's I think that first subset of people that you were speaking about.
Yeah, it's that idea of hope. Like, I do think they overthink it, but it is that idea of hope.
I love you.
I also think, as you were talking, I thought a friend of mine once told me it's really hard. He said, "I'd rather be second than be first. Because whenever you're first, you're always looking over your shoulder to see who's coming to take my spot. Who's
That's
coming to
right.
take my spot? He
Your
said, I
chest is
just like
wide
to be
open for every
second. And
aim.
yeah. And there is that pressure, I think, especially for white Americans. I don't know, I'm not a white American, but I can only imagine.
Right.
Right. To have this country and all that it is claiming to be to the world. And to be very, very careful not to show any weakness in any area, right? And so to say that white supremacy is a thing here, that it's part of our DNA, is admitting to a weakness. And I don't think that people in the top caste of our country are allowed to do that, have been given that permission to. So then again, I go back to restorative justice, because restoring humanity to people gives you permission to admit when you have made a mistake, or when you have where you have a weakness, or where you have a flaw, because we all do. But if you have to be powerful and you have to be rich, then you have to be ruthless. In our country.
And isn't that horrible? Like, I often think of what it costs the soul that has to be ruthless. That has to be that way, you know.
Yes.
Like,
and that's where my dream and vision and hope for restoration comes in, because racism in our country has cost white people
a lot,
exponentially more than they imagine. Right?
I mean,
yes. And I would love to see that healed for them, because if we can get that, not that I need to, but if they can get that healed, we can be healed.
For real. You know, I agree with you 100%. I think of this, I saw this image many years ago at a museum, and I think it was here in Charlotte, and it was the Museum of the New South. And it was this picture of this, of a hanging, a lynching. And there were two black men. I didn't know how disfigured you looked when you're hanging by your neck.
Right.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This was really
it's okay.
It was a bad image.
It is a bad image.
And there were these two black men hanging from this tree, and they were surrounded by white people dressed in their Sunday best. And for some reason, on that particular image, this picture that I was looking at, I narrowed in on this cute little white girl with like ringlets, and she was like holding, you know, my image in my mind might be inaccurate at this point and at this current time, but in my mind, it's like she was holding a drumstick or something. She's just eating it and looking at it. And I just remember thinking, what were we requiring of that little girl?
Yeah.
To look at that, to see two human beings hanging from a tree. And I thought, that's a cost.
That is a cost.
We are changed. Whoever she was before that day, she is somebody different after that. And who that person is after that, that is a great deficit of who she was before.
Yeah, and who she was created to be.
You know what I mean? And I was like, that is a huge cost. So to your point, racism cost us all.
It costs us all.
Until we realize that it costs us all, we're not all going to come and want to fight against it or get back what it has taken from us.
Right. That's right.
That image hurt my heart to this day. I just was like, and I'm sure there were other young people in that picture, but she stood out.
The one that,
girl, because maybe because I saw myself in her, she was dressed in her Sunday best, her patent leather shoes, just looking as cute as could be. And standing there with her parents, like, look at these niggas.
Yeah, right. Yeah, dehumanizing to us all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's and we can't move forward until we deal with that.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to keep doing this same cycle, sadly, of Trayvon Martin and George Floyd and Sandra Bland and Brianna. You
Right.
know, we're going to keep doing that until we have a reckoning. And the reckoning can be retributive, or it can be restorative, or it might be a little bit of both.
Right. I would say
Mm-hmm.
too, I have another question. Like, I know I'm going to let you go. I promise.
No, it's okay.
Um, I, I had someone ask me that, well, did you feel this all before George Floyd? Like,
Mm,
does it, and I guess I want to ask you, why do you think
mm,
I felt everything I feel right now way before George Floyd?
mm-hmm.
But I think for me,
Yeah.
George Floyd was the last time I was willing to feel it.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. That's the
No,
last time I'm willing to feel
I
this.
don't want to feel
Yeah.
this shit one more day.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
one more time.
Yeah. I'm
And
done with that.
I'm done with it. I can't
Mm-hmm.
come up. I can't even look at your bullshit Facebook posts.
No, I cannot.
I cannot. I have no more time.
Yeah.
No more
Here's the
time.
thing for me with George Floyd. So I have felt like this since for as long as I can. Well, since I first heard about Emmett Till, right? So
Girl,
as
I
a
learned about him
child,
in fifth grade too.
yeah, seeing
Susan Patmore
water
was my teacher
hoses
who taught me.
turned on human beings, seeing dogs released on human beings.
Sick on human beings. And seeing
Yes.
the person, I keep
Mhm.
moving to this, seeing the
Mhm.
person who is
Yep.
behind sicking
Yep.
the dog or
Yep.
blowing the water. Who
Yeah.
have we required you to be?
Right. Exactly. And even today, like the police officers are pawns in a system. They're pawns in a racist system, the ones who are perpetuating this oppression. But okay, so I felt this for forever. And I do have a problem with the response to George Floyd. It took that to wake you up. It took, um, after all of this, it took that to wake you up. And the reason many people said that's what woke them up is because he called for his mother. That spoke to many white women who are mothers.
Mm-hmm.
But all of these other people are someone's child.
They
And
are.
this was the first one that I just have a problem with. That one has never said, I'm glad for more voices in the fight. I'm glad for more
Mm-hmm.
um, participation. But people have been dying for hundreds of years.
For years and years.
And their murderers are gathering in crowds in their Sunday best to watch it happen. Right?
That was the thing that shook me when I saw that photo. I was like,
Yeah.
who are you? How
Yeah.
am I
Mm-hmm.
written down in history as the
Mm-hmm.
animal?
Right.
How am
Yes.
I
Yeah.
written down in history as the animal? And the only person who looks animalistic in this image are the white folks standing there. Yet I will
Mm-hmm.
tell you this. Today in my life, I do not walk around and think that every white person is an animal. So I
Agree.
want to know how you wrote me down in history
Mm-hmm.
as the animal, and
Yeah.
every person who looks like me is the animal. When truthfully, if I'm going to pull from empirical evidence, my brother, who has clearly and consistently been an animal,
Mm. Right.
yet I don't
Right.
hold that animalistic behavior over every white person I
Right.
meet,
Right.
or the white guy that I'm married to.
Right. Yeah. And so we have that, we go back to like, what have Black people learned to, I don't know, what have become our coping mechanisms, right, in this, and what have become our strengths? What talk about neuroplasticity, right? What have we grown and developed in our minds and in our brains that others do not have because they have not experienced it the way we have? But also, white people, what have they developed? What have they experienced and grown? I think white people have been unaware of how much they can learn from us because of what we've had to endure silently, right?
Correct.
Through the years. So, yeah, power is a dangerous thing, and Love is a powerful thing.
It is. And it seems to me like power is most dangerous when it doesn't have love.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, it
Hmm.
seems like power can be an amazing thing
Hmm.
when married to love. I am
Hmm.
powerful over my
Hmm.
daughter. She's
Yeah.
13 years old. She ain't got no job. Hmm. She ain't got no place to
Yeah.
live
Right.
except for this
Right.
house.
Hmm. Hmm.
She doesn't have an ability to buy herself the latest, greatest Adidas
Hmm.
or Vans
Right.
or whatever. I
Hmm.
am powerful over her,
Hmm.
but I
Or
deeply
you
love
are
her.
powerful for her,
Yep,
right? You're powerful on her behalf. You are you exercise your power out of love for her and out of
that's my
compassion
thing.
for her. Yeah.
So I think power without love
Yeah.
is
It's
really,
dangerous.
it's really dangerous.
Hmm.
It's something that none of us want to see or
No.
certainly be on the receiving end of.
Yeah. And we weren't really created for that. We were not
Agreed.
created. Mm-mm. So, I
What
mean,
would
I think, I'm not saying we shouldn't have power, but, just that absolute power is dangerous when
it is
there's no accountability. There's no, what you're saying, no love.
no love.
Hmm.
What would you say? One of the things that I saw on your website is like, hey, essentially, start where you are, what you have, right where
Yep.
you are.
Hmm.
It's enough.
Yeah.
What would be the encouragement you would give to people, white people, black people, American people
Hmm.
in their lives
Yeah.
today to move towards restorative
Yeah. I
space,
think
even if
it,
justice, I don't know.
yeah, that's good. Um, I think, the work begins inside.
Hmm.
And it's very easy to get on social media or get in a conversation with someone and pick apart where someone else needs to grow and change. But
Right.
all of that distracts me from myself.
Doesn't it though? But
So
I want
it's
to
really
focus on you.
important. Yeah. I always recommend people take the IDI, the Intercultural Development Inventory. There's a
Ooh.
website, IDI, I think that's what it is,
Behind the scenes,
idi.com.
would you send me
Hmm.
what behind the scenes would you send me it so I can attach it to this? I'll
Yeah.
go back.
Yeah.
Basically, I save this and it
Hmm.
uploads immediately
Yes.
to IGTV and I'll come
Hmm.
back to you and if you
Okay.
send me that information, I'll put it in the body
Yeah,
of this.
definitely, definitely. So, and
IDI.
yeah, it gives you I guess a continuum. Kind of, you know how we like to do the Enneagram and the
Yep.
Myers-Briggs and all those
I know
other
I need to
things.
do the
This is
Enneagram. I've only done Myers-Briggs.
this is like
ENFJ.
one of those INFP. Um, I it's like that, but for where you are with your intercultural competency, your intercultural development.
Ooh.
So yes, and it's not. So I think it's really important for people to take that or something like that,
Yeah.
to know where you are, and then to have an administrator explain that to you. What does this mean that this is where you are? Because if you're taking it, we assume you want to be at the far end of the continuum. Um,
Ah.
and so you take it, you find out where you are, and you are
Wonderful.
usually lower than you think you are.
You'll be like, I knocked this out the park.
Yeah, and then nope.
No. So
So
here's the racist, and this is where you are. Right.
right.
Yeah.
So I suggest people take that, and then be honest with yourself about what that means,
And it's all
without
right. I just
shame.
want to say to what Deidre's saying, it's all right if you're not the hero in
It
that moment, that you're
is.
not the good guy. It's all
It's
right.
totally okay.
Yeah.
And the thing about the IDI, I mean, I deal a lot with conversations around race because I'm a black woman in America and it impacts me daily. But
All
there
the
are
time.
other, right? But if you were to overlay the IDI, there are different cultures. There's the LGBTQ community.
Mhm.
There's police culture.
Yeah.
There's academic culture.
Sure.
So you may be in one
There's
place when it
immigrant culture.
exactly,
There's so many
yes.
different things.
And this takes all of that into consideration. And so you may
Ooh.
be at one
How'd you
place
learn
with
about this?
one. I actually worked with a woman when I lived in Nebraska, and she came to our church, and she
Nebraska.
administered the.
That was a very black church.
That's it's a different conversation altogether. So she taught me about the IDI, and then I'm prepping to actually be certified myself to administer that. So yeah,
Ooh.
so it's a good little tool. But I think to take that, get your results, be honest about what that means. You don't need to share it with people, but in yourself, and then don't shame yourself about it.
Right.
Set a plan for yourself, because it gives you an actual um, goalpost, a milestone to achieve. And we achieve our milestones different. All of us are different, and we achieve them differently, but at least you know where you're starting from.
Yeah,
Right.
and also knowing that where you're starting from has a
Mm-hmm.
lot to do with what you've been taught, and what you've been taught is
Yes.
truth. So, like for instance, I'm a cis woman,
Yes.
and I have inherent, like, so when I turn on Hallmark movies around Christmas time, or any
Mm-hmm.
time that they will bless me with this foolishness that I
Yes.
consume at a ridiculous rate, um, I'm I naturally am not bothered by not seeing anybody other than
Right.
cis women in
Yep.
heterosexual relationships pursuing
Relationships.
heterosexual love,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep.
But it's when I
Mm-hmm.
start expanding whom
Yes.
whom I love
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and who I want to consider, that I start to realize that
Wait a
there are a
minute.
lot of people who I greatly admire and appreciate are not there, and I was not bothered by their lack of representation.
Yeah.
That's not
Right.
pretty, but it's
And
true.
it's true.
It's true.
There's,
I was not bothered
right.
by their lack of representation. But then I sit down and I go, but I want to be better than that.
Mm-hmm.
I want
Exactly.
to see my brothers and sisters of who are not cisborn, who are
Mm-hmm.
not straight,
Yep.
who deserve love. When I was in law school, there was this guy that I was in law school with, and he was in my year. He was a 1L with me, and he was morbidly obese.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I had a mentor who was, I think, a year or two ahead of me. She was either 2L or 3L when
Okay.
we met. And she took me under her wing. And one time in our many like sessions of her just pouring into me, we started talking about this guy. And she said, you know what's really just wrong? And it should break our hearts. And I was like, what? And
Mm-hmm.
she goes, he deserves love just like you deserve love.
Mm.
And because he is morbidly obese,
Mm.
we will disqualify him from being loved, from
Right.
being touched, from
Right.
being sought after, from being longed for.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until she said that I was like, you're right. So my point
Yes.
is, up until she said that, I was a human being
Yeah.
who was comfortable with him not being valuable enough for love,
Yeah.
for amorous love,
Yeah.
for like, ooh, baby,
Yeah.
can I get what you kind of love? Because
Yes.
he was disqualified because he was really
Right.
morbidly obese. But ultimately, as a human being, he craved exactly what I craved.
Exactly.
And why should he not have it?
Exactly.
And that
Right.
was a beautiful thing for me to recognize the ugly in me.
And that's a beautiful thing for you to share here. And that's exactly how we move forward, is just to say, oh, this is who I am. That's not who I want to be, but this is who I am. And how do I get to be different? And that's all it is. That's all it is. I recognize who I am. It's not who I want. I don't think it's who God created me to be. How did this get in here?
Right.
And how do I get it out? Yeah.
Ms. Deidra, what would you want people to take away from our conversation tonight?
Everyone, just what you said. Everyone is deserving of love. Everyone is deserving of love. What in me is keeping that from happening for people?
Yeah.
I don't want to discount the truth of racism and white supremacy and people's trauma. I think discounting it diminishes love.
Yeah.
Um, because you bring your whole self to love. Love is about your whole self
As you bring your
and
whole
the
self to life.
other person's whole self,
Hmm.
whoever that is.
Hmm.
So how do we restore people to their full humanity?
Hmm.
And how do I get rid of what's in me that keeps that from happening for other people?
Ms. Deidra, I end every interview that
Yeah.
I have the pleasure of really just enjoying with some fireball questions in the spirit of
Okay.
James Lipton from
Yeah.
Inside the Actor Studio.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So,
Yes.
what sound or noise do you love?
Ooh, I love the sound of the ocean, but my favorite sound really is silence. I am an INFP. I'm an
Right.
introvert at heart.
Are you?
I love a good party. I love hanging out with people, but I'm a good meditator. I know people have trouble meditating, but I'm good at
You're good at it. I love it. I love it.
it.
I'm as much of an extrovert as I am.
Uh-huh.
I'm interested if I were to when I retook the Myers-Briggs about
Mm.
2 months ago, I was an ENFP. But in law school, I was an ENFJ.
Oh,
But
interesting.
it's interesting that as extrovert as I am, I
Yeah,
require a lot of downtime
you need
too.
that. Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
What
Okay.
sound or noise don't you love?
Oh.
Say it.
Like, you know that sound? What is it? It's so disgusting. Um, it's like, oh, I can't even.
She said, it's so disgusting.
It's so awful. Like if
Please,
something,
I need it.
if you had, my daughter did this the other day on her Instagram story. She was cooking something like
Ooh, metal,
pasta and
metal and metal.
no, it's the sound of all of that, and people don't
The
like this word, that
moisture.
moist,
Ah!
yes.
The,
Oh,
the wet
that,
sound. Oh, I love it.
no,
I love
I
it.
don't like that.
You don't like it.
I
Oh
do
my
not.
gosh. What's the
Mm-mm.
last great book you've read?
Ooh, right now I'm reading Cast. Have you read that yet?
No, but I actually need to get on that. Like when I say
Yeah,
get on
it's
that, I
a
need to get on that tomorrow.
slow read, slow read. That was really, really good.
What do you love about Cast? Because I saw your updates,
Yeah,
your posts.
I thought it was going to be a very dense, hard book to read. And it's not. Her writing is really
Light?
accessible,
Okay.
but it's
Accessible.
important information. It's
Mm-hmm.
very accessible, important information. That was good. Um, Man, there's some other books like you would expect me to say a book like that, but
No, that's right.
like I like the book. I really loved the book Four Seasons in Rome. That was just a
Ooh,
pretty romantic book about a writer. Um,
4 seasons in Rome. Mm.
Four Seasons in Rome. That was a good book. I did like All the Light We Cannot See. I like The
Oh,
Hate You Give.
girl, I don't know if
Um,
I can read The Hate You Give. I feel like I'm too soft. Like I feel like it will break me.
hmm, maybe. Yeah.
The movie,
I
I even
listened to
wanted
it.
to watch the movie The Hate You Give, but I was like,
Yeah.
I can't do it right now,
I know. Well,
Jesus.
that's okay. Stay away from it. Don't do it. Don't do
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Stay away. Um, yeah, those are good books.
Wine or whiskey?
Ooh, I have to choose? Is it white wine or red wine?
Well, that was going to be the next question, depending on your answer. Usually, when people say, if they say whiskey, it's over. If they say wine, and then I
You
say red
say
or
red
white.
or white? If it's white wine, I choose whiskey. If it's red wine, I choose wine.
Girl, I'm about to have me some right after we get off of this. Oh, Deidra, you just made me love you even more. Will you please be my friend even after this?
Absolutely. I know. I'm thinking we got to get together.
Oh my
Yes.
word. And I always actually start my interviews with this, but I didn't do it today because
Okay.
you're so enthralling. Where are you on this planet?
Oh, I am in Bloomfield, Connecticut. Where are
Hello.
you?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. Nice. Yes.
I love it. What is your favorite word?
Oh, my favorite word. Probably There's a long story behind it, but I'll just say resolute.
Resolute. I love it.
Hmm.
What's your
Hmm.
favorite curse word?
Oh, you want me to say it?
Yep.
It's I made one up. I can't say that one.
You can't say the made up curse
I
word.
can't. No. I do like the F word.
It's a good one.
It's a good one.
You hold great company. When Matt Damon was on Inside the Actor Studio, he said that was his favorite word. He's
Is
like,
that what he said?
he said it's a bridge, it's a noun, it's a verb, it's a connector, it's everything.
It's everything. And
It
it just, for a long time, I did not use swear words, and especially that one,
is.
because
Right.
it was just the word. But
I
now it's
think me too. But
hmm
in this last year, I've been
hmm
leaning into it,
right.
sister. Lean
Last
in.
year,
Like, leaning.
yeah.
Like, all
Yes,
the way.
yes, it's so true.
Just leaning into it. Last question.
Okay.
If heaven exists, what do you want
Mm.
God to say when you get there?
Oh, cute shoes.
Ah! Oh,
I do.
oh. Deidra, you are a joy. Thank you
Same.
so much for spending
No,
time with
thank
me.
you. That was a blast. Thanks so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. It was
Thank you
really
for
fun.
answering it. And thank you
Yeah.
for real on the
Yeah.
work that you do. It
Well,
makes a
thank
difference in
you.
this world. You make a difference in mine.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Let's connect.
We will.
Okay.
Peace.
Okay. Peace. Bye.